Hold on, guys. Give me just a minute. Okay. Okay. You know what? Actually, hold on. Forgot about something. I forgot about something. Uh, 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 uh. Okay, I need to. Hold on. This is what I was going to do. That's what I was going to do. Ignore this. This is from me doing some research yesterday. Today we're going to see if I can find any. Uh, we're going to try to see if we can find anything about this guy right here. He's only a little older than my brother. Um. Okay. I feel like I've read this before. I feel like doing basic research on just, cursory research on a couple different psychics. I feel like this is a category in a lot of them. Let's see. Yeah, and this is why I was thinking about him is he's somewhat more relevant than some of the others. There is not a lot on him here. Okay. Okay, so let's see how we're gonna let me pull up my little outline. Move over here for a second and adjust the size. Okay. That is very funny. Where's my other? Oh, there it is. So, I just want to highlight something for you guys. So, obviously, there's not a whole lot. It's not on the right thing. There's not a whole lot of information. There's a lot of references for a whole lot of nothing. Um, I guess it's referencing all these, this list of celebrities. Is where a lot of that comes from. But um, what I love is in his, in his like biography area before the career. It just has a single sentence: Henry is gay. That's it. Very funny that it's not like they didn't include it. Like they didn't arrange the sentence in a way that they could have just had it together with the rest of the sentence. No, just one sentence by itself. Henry is gay. It's very funny to me. And also that comes after his education, and there's nothing after that. He didn't complete college. He is gay. Anyway, enough enough about how I find uh the sentence structure there very funny. Um okay. Okay. Trying to figure out how I want to um let's see. Um what do I um he um there we go. Is a TV psychic that even had a show on. No, that most recently, I should say, from what I see, it looks like it's most recently. Okay. Let's see. Um, uh, TV psychic most recently? Netflix. Um, has done readings on multiple celebrities predicted Alan Hicks. There we go. Death. Okay. I should note it's not in here, but I should note that he does. I'm drawing a blank on the actual term. But his communication with the dead or whatever you want to say uh, involves him drawing, and the drawings aren't like anything special. It's basically just like scribbles and stuff. But um, that's actually why I wanted to cover him. One of the reasons, obviously, the other reason is he's relatively relevant compared to like a lot of the older TV psychics. But he, but that actually gives him a leg up that a lot of other psychics don't necessarily have. In that he can use the excuse that he's communicating with ghosts by drawing, which a distracts the audience from the fact that he's taking a long time to come up with what he's going to say next, but it also gives him time to come up with what he's going to say next. A lot of times, the other ones that don't use that technique will just be walking around the stage and going, they're talking to me, that kind of thing, where they're not really doing anything. They're just walking back and forth or just sitting there or something. Whereas, people are like, oh, I wonder what he's drawing. Which I think is fascinating. But there is not a whole lot about him. Uh, uses drawing to what is it? Strong to spirits. There we go. All right. So let's see. Um, Not really gonna get a lot else there. And actually, let's. Oh wow, that's a big crash. Okay. What was I gonna type? I was gonna type. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and look into the history of psychics because I actually don't think I'm gonna get a lot of information about them in general, like the psychics that I plan to talk about. And unlike, say, with anti-vax, where like Andrew Wakefield, I have a ton on him because he's the one that started the the, the movement. Um, Pseudo archaeology. I know for sure I'm going to be talking about Graham Hancock and Carl Baugh slash Kent Hovind. Um, there's a lot to say about them, and what they believe. Um, so I think rather than, since I don't really have that with the the psychics, what I might do is have a introductory to the history of um, the psychic bullshit, you know, in addition to the summary, because each thing that I do, I'm going to have a summary of why that particular thing is an issue and um, everything else. Um, okay. I hate all of this. Like, AI has ruined searching so much. Let's see. We'll open up a couple pages, obviously. Can you can you can you go away? Can you go away? I do not wanted you to go away. And you're still not fucking going away. Okay, we'll read a couple things. Okay. Psychic readings have been part of human history for centuries. Yes, that's why I'm trying to captivate. Blah, blah. Okay. The origins of psychic readings can be traced back to ancient civilizations, where they played a pivotal role in decision making, spiritual guidance, and understanding of the unknown. Okay. The earliest form of psychic readings can be found in ancient Greece. Okay. That we can use. Hold on. History, if I can spell today. Actually, no. There we go. Um, Oracles of ancient Greece. Let's see. Uh, where oracles were revered as sources of divine wisdom. Oracle of Delphi, which I have heard of that, situated in the Temple of Apollo, was perhaps the most famous. Pilgrims from across the Mediterranean sought counsel from the Pythia priestess, who would enter a trance-like state and utter cryptic prophecies believed to be inspired by the gods. In China, divination practices date back to thousands of years. Okay. In feng shui, the art of harmonizing one's environment or employed to gain insights in the future and enhance one's well-being. Let's see. Often rooted in their deep connection with nature and the spirit world, shamanic rituals, tribal elders, and divination through dream interpretation were common methods. Man, everyone and their mother brings up Nostradamus, and it's like you read his prophecies, and they're just nonsense. Like you actually have to like force, the stuff that has happened into his predictions. They're just nonsense. Um, and they're so vague too. Like, I forget the prediction that everyone's saying is 9/11. It was just talking about towers of fire. Like that literally could be anything. Um, Not familiar with Edgar Casey. In different cultures, Indian mysticism. Uh, okay. Yeah, this shit's stupid. Um, okay, this was more just general thing. I got a couple things from it. Let's see. Um, wrong. There we go. And then do that. Let's see. Uh, Let's see. Um, and then what is it? Divination through dreams. And I cannot spell today. Richerers? Richerers? Okay. Then we're gonna go Western occultism. Uh, tarot. I'm just gonna list them off. Astrology. And crystal gazing, which admittedly is the one I know the least about of the Western occultism stuff. Boom. And then we're gonna talk about new stuff. Um, oh, uh, that to be there. Oh shit! I know what I did. Hold on. Okay, I understand what happened now. Need to fix this real quick. There we go. We fixed it. Online readings, social media, obviously a big thing. One of the psychics we're going to be talking about uses YouTube, probably TikTok, honestly. There we go. So, let's see. Does this have anything new about it? All right. Um, I don't know. Mm, I don't know if I'm going to really get into that per se, because I'd rather just stick to the facts that just stick to, hey, here's the history, here's these individuals, here's what they do. Um, but and not every like psychic uses ESP, like the shamanic rituals isn't ESP, like, so I don't, we'll see. Let's see. Teleportation. Okay. Yeah, I'd love to see some of these people try to teleport. Large industry network where people advertised as psychics provide advice to counsel to clients. Um, 1988, the published report on the subject, which concluded there is no scientific justifications from research conducted over a period of 130 years for the existence of parapsychological phenomena. 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 So actually, that is interesting right there. We're going to have to look into that. Okay. All right. Let's see. Astrology. I already have that. We already got the Oracle Delphi, and we already have Pythia. I mean, we're going to do more research into them. Actually, you know what? We will go ahead and open those in new links. I don't think there's anything else I'm going to be getting in here. Per se. Okay, let's go ahead and go into what? Oh, both of these indicated. Did I misread that? I guess I interpreted this as this being separate from this. And then hold on. Okay. I don't know. I guess I just let's see. It was established in the late 8th century BC. And is widely credited for her prophecies uttered in her divine possession. continued to be consulted until late. Quite a list of people that have mentioned her. You got Plato, Sophocles, uh, Diogenes. Yeah, we got a lot. Okay. Let's see. Nonetheless, details of how the Pythia operated are scarce, missing, or non-existent. Um, treat the process as common knowledge with no need to explain. If that makes sense. Are from the first century and give conflicting stories. Hmm. Okay. Oh, come on. Teenage Mixer. Now I gotta ban you. Okay. Remember Mixer? That was crazy. Their name reminded me of Mixer. Uh, let's see. I never used Mixer at all. Not even to watch people. Of course, I didn't really watch a lot of live streams back then. Me watching live streams is fairly recent um, phenomena. Anyway, okay, so for our outline, let's pull that back up. I had to minimize it for the ban. All right. Um, Oracle. Of Delphi. Um, Established at the latest. By at least. We'll do by at least. See. Um, Officized um by divine possession by Um, my divine possession by Apollo. Um, um, and despite being one of the best documented religious institutions of ancient Greece. Details um uh how they operated are near non-existent and even the details seem contradictory. This is fascinating, by the way. Contradictory. And that should be enough of that. If I need to do some extra fluff, I'll do some extra fluff. Okay, so we'll do this next. For centuries, psychics have fascinated and perplexed people with their extraordinary abilities to glimpse into the realm of the unknown. Blah 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 blah. The roots of psychic phenomena can be traced to ancient civilizations where individuals with heightened intuitive abilities were revered and sought after for their insights. Through shamanism, divination, and oracles. Definitely going to be looking into shamanism next, I think. Let's see. Societies transitioned into the medieval era. Mysticism and occult practices gained prominence. Practices like astrology, numerology, and tarot reading became popular. The line between true psychic abilities and theatrical performances blurred. The spiritualist movement took center stage. I should talk about definitely going to talk about shamanism because it's been brought up several times now. So that's definitely something that's important to the history of psychics. But I do know at least I'll just put it under Western occult for now. Um, Spiritualism, because that would lead into what I'm talking about, because under the idea of psychics, the two people that I'm gonna be, I guess technically three people that I'm gonna be talking about would fall into the psychic medium realm. So having that the spiritualism part there would be a nice transition into then talking about them specifically. Okay. Anyway, with the rise of stage magic in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the line between genuine psychic abilities and tricks of the trade became increasingly blurred. In the early 20th century, a new form of performer emerged known as the mentalist. Yep. Let's see. All right. Okay. What is that? No idea what that is. Okay. So let's go ahead and learn about shamanism. Because it's definitely been brought up a couple times now. Okay. So let's see. Interacting with the spirit world through altered states of consciousness, such as a trance. The goal of this is usually to direct spirits or spiritual energies into the physical world for the purpose of healing, divination, or to aid human beings in some other way. I am also fascinated by this. So, let's see. There's no single agreed upon definition for the word shamanism among anthropologists. Argues that the most justifiable definition includes three basic features: entering a non ordinary state, engaging with unseen realities, and providing services like healing and divination. Um, oh, criticism of the term. Interesting. We'll read that real quick. I do not want to have controversy on my end when making the video. Uh, Part of this criticism involves the notion of cultural appropriation. This includes criticism of New Age and modern Western forms of shamanism, uh, misrepresent or dilute indigenous practices, reinforces racist ideas as such the noble savage. Drumming, trance, chanting, hallucination, spiritual communication, healing, as definitive of shamanism ignores the fact that they exist outside of what is defined as shamanism and even play similar roles to non shamanic cultures, for example, chanting in Abrahamic religions. She argues that the expression, uh, these expressions are unique to each culture that uses them, and such practices cannot be generalized easily, accurately, or usefully into the global religion of shamanism. Uh, Critical of the hypothesis that shamanism is an ancient, unchanged, and surviving religion from a Paleolithic period. For its colonial roots and as a tool to perpetuate perceived contemporary linguistic colonialism. Can very dramatically but not accurately represent a single concept. Um, Language used to imply simplicity in regards to indigenous cultures. Uh, I mean, listen, I don't believe it's accurate and scientifically, as they mentioned in where was it? I think it was actually in the psychic Wikipedia page. There's 150 years of research on this kind of phenomenon has found no evidence for it. So I would be fine with the fact that it uses dogma, implies dogma. Um, but the idea that we're using it to describe a bunch of different cultures is interesting, but so far they're not offering a alternative outside of four to get away from the implied dogma, which again, but as far as like the cultural stuff, which is the part I would actually be care about and try to um try to address, uh they don't have something. um it's just local variation. uh okay, so let's see, we're gonna go ahead. I'll of make a note of this, you know, but I'm still going to use the term shamanism because outside of changing the term shamanhood to or shamanship to eliminate dogma, they don't give an alternative to get away from the idea that was discussed up here, about, you know, combining the cultures together and like the colonialism aspect of it and all of that. And that would, again, that's what I would be more concerned about. I understand the idea down here, where it's not religion of sacred dogmas, but linked to everyday life in a practical way. I understand where they're coming from there, but it also is a religious practice. Um, and so there is some dogma there. So, um, I'll make a note for discussion when I do end up discussing this. There's a lot of criticism of that term for the cultural aspects of it, but yeah. All right. I may look into the Chinese divination stuff, just, to cover all my bases. But it looks like for what I'm particularly studying about, it doesn't appear there's a whole lot of overlap there, and that could just be, um, the Eurocentrism of it. Um, and so I will look into it, but it looks like I could probably cut that stuff out just looking at what I have listed here. All right, shamanic rituals. Um, of term due to uh, colonialism. Let's see. Um, wide variety of um, so, let's see. Let's see. Contacts, spirits, um, while in altered state. uh, well, that second definition's the same goddamn thing. Just the difference is one's for themselves and one's for others. Let's see. Okay, we're gonna adjust this a little bit because those four things are the same three things, and I feel like those three things that let's see, Manveer Singh uh, is worded better. Let's see, non-ordinary states. Uh, Engaging with unseen. Realities. Uh, that's what I was looking for. And uh, healing and divination service. All right. So we got that all done. Okay. Let's see. We'll go into the beliefs later. We'll read what I have else, but we may move on to the next thing. All right, let's see. Is the world's oldest spiritual path coupled with the practical strategies for survival. It is nature-based path of revelation, meaning that each person has access to spirit and spirits without the need of any hierarchical structure. Shamanism is a cross-cultural spiritual path practiced in every continent of the world. It is remarkably similar everywhere, even though throughout history it has been little. There has been little contact between shamans in widely divergent parts of the world. All attempts to wipe out shamanism by the Nazis, so boy, and various organized religions have failed. Although some people consider shamanism a religion, has no dogma, pope, or sacred book, or any universal set of rules, commandments. I mean, I guess that's fair that it's not religious, but uh, ultimately, shamanism is the study of practicing of accumulating, storing, and utilizing power to suspend everyday laws of nature and to influence and manipulate the reality for the purpose of healing, prophesying, divining, and engaging in supernatural feats. Okay. We'll do this real quick. That okay, well that's not useful to me at all. All right. What is a shamanic practitioner? Trained shamans apprenticed for many years under a master shaman teacher. All members of the community and tribes follow the shamanic way of life, are familiar with shamanic worldview and practice fundamental aspects of shamanism. They may communicate with nature spirits, pray for in the shamanic honor honor plants and animals, and perhaps do some healing work. I love in the previous page that led to this, it says it's not religious, and then in this one it says pray, which I realize doesn't necessarily have to be religious, but they could have used a different word there because that, like it or not, pray has become synonymous with religion. Um, but anyway, most shamans live in remote areas of the world and not urban centers, which makes sense. Um, it's very much tied to nature from what I've read. Different areas of the world are traveling extensively to bring their knowledge to people in urban areas on different continents. Uh, Many people with great talents are adopting the shamanic nature-based worldview and have learned a vast amount of healing and other aspects of the shamanic practice. They are shamanic practitioners. They have not necessarily gone through old school shamanic apprenticeship, but are skilled healers, ceremonialists, and teachers in their own right. Uh, some few actually have apprenticed with master shamans for years, but sensitive to appropriation issues may choose not to call themselves shamans, rather shamanic practitioners. Uh, Shamanic healing starts with an interview to find out what the symptoms are, um, how long the person has been having them, as well as the severity and other pertinent information. Uh, Observing the patient in a meditative state. Depending on the information they may receive, they may take various approaches to the healing using proper shamanic tools for the job. The practitioner may use sound healing with a drum or rattle, feathers, tobacco crystals, or other tools. Are generally short, between 15 minutes to half an hour, but in some cases can last up to 1 hour. They often come in groups of 3 over a period of several days or weeks. Well, at least they got that going for them. That they're not, they can't say that only they can save them or charge exorbitant fees. Huh. We're going to go back to the main page. Okay. And we are going to look this up. It is what? I want information on it, not. Yeah. I am going to go ahead and take that out. I'm not opposed to reading a book about stuff like that. Um, Here we go. Wikipedia page was hidden behind all the fucking AI bullshit. So it's just a book. Cosmological text. Each of the 64 possible sets corresponds to a hexagram. Interesting. Yeah. I'll probably still study this because this is fascinating. But for the purposes of this video, it's not really super related. I mean, I'm even debating whether shamanism is related enough for me to discuss. Because, obviously I'm talking about psychics as we now know them. I'm talking about two modern day psychics. And this is just for the introduction to those two psychics, right? So I need to make sure that everything in the video is somewhat related, or can at least transition nicely into another section. And so, Oracle of Delphi is, even though we don't know a lot about it, we know that it was, the prophecies were by divine possession. So that's close enough, and there's not a whole lot of information there, but that way we establish, it's from everything I've read so far, it is the oldest example of, psychic prophecies or whatever. So it'd be nice to have that in there, so we have what we consider the origin. It might not even be the origin, but what we consider the origin. And it is somewhat close to what they do now. Because instead of being possessed by a god, now they simply speak to spirits. So it is close enough. It is the beginning, so it makes sense to be in there. But with like the this, and this is interpreting, um, you know, yarrow stalks, um, and hexagon shapes, which I guess hexagons are just as a hexagram, but still, whatever. Um, but they that doesn't really connect to what I'm talking about. And I'd even argue that the shamanic rituals barely coordinate with what I'm talking about. They do contact the spirit realm, and do provide divination services, but in a very different way. I guess it's similar enough that's why I'm like, it's different enough that I'm like, should I include it? I got to make sure I have the video tight. Um, but it's similar enough that it's like, okay, I should keep it in. This is not similar enough for me to keep in, so I won't. Um, but yeah, we'll go ahead and keep shaman shamanism bleh, shamanism in there. We'll get rid of that. We don't need that. I'm even thinking about getting rid of the tarot card and crystal gazing. Um, might even get rid of the astrology. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and move over here then. We'll do that. Okay. Uh, let's go ahead and get into the spiritualism. There we go. Spiritualism. There we go. The spiritualism led to what is now the idea of psychics that we now associate with that. Okay, and then we'll do that. BBC is pretty trusted. We'll stick with that for now. Okay. Oh, this is a fascinating phenomenon. I forget what it's called, but essentially they what is it? They expose the photo, which is why this part of the photo is nice and clean. And then they'll expose another one like there, but they won't fully expose it, which gives off this like ghostly figure. I forget the exact process and the term for it, but yeah, that it's a fascinating phenomenon that they did to make those effects. But it is very much a fake effect. Those photos. Anyway, is a metaphysical belief that the world is made up of at least two fundamental substances, matter and spirit. It's distinction is further developed into many various forms by the inclusion of details about what spiritual entities exist, such as soul, the afterlife, spirits of the dead, deities, and mediums, as well as details about the nature and relationship of spirit and matter. I guess, yeah, here we go. Spiritualistic traditions are deeply rooted in shamanism. So we're going to keep in the shamanism. There we go. Mediumship is a form of shamanism, and such ideas are very much like those developed by there are other parallel worlds to our own, invisible and not accessible to us in our state. Psychic is to be one of the connecting links to these worlds. A psychic is defined by someone who is endowed with exceptional sensitivity to the occult dimension, who experiences visions and revelations. Spiritualism is the belief that spirits are able to communicate with the living by the agency of a medium. The earliest recorded use of this word is 1796. Let's see. I just want. It's just gonna list a bunch of. I mean, this is very fascinating because it does connect the shamanism to what we'll be talking about, which is media. In this, it called it mediumship. But I wish that there was more to this, but that's fine. We've got a couple more articles to read. It gained momentum in America during the mid 1800s. Movement. Oh, I remember the Fox sisters. That was a crazy story. The movement essentially held that the people could communicate with people that have died. Spiritualists didn't build churches or have preachers. They believed they could communicate with those who have died and would hold meetings in homes or community buildings where lectures would be given or seances conducted so people could speak to their dead loved ones. Why did spiritualism become such a phenomenon during the mid 1800s? The 16th and 17th centuries were dominated by a puritanical form of Christianity, one which I may add is trying to push itself back into the modern day. Anyway, anyone who practiced anything like spiritualism during that time would have been risking their life. America was drastically changing in the 1800s. There were more industrialization and urbanization. Inventions in science were transforming how people looked at the world. Immigrants were bringing in new religious practices and beliefs. People were not comforted by traditional Christian beliefs when loved ones died. The death of children especially led parents to seek comfort in other places besides their community church. Invention and science were particularly popular factors in the popularity of spiritualism. Some even saw spiritualism as a scientific religion. The All right. The invention of photography played into spiritualism beautifully. Brand new technology fascinated and terrified at the same time. Photography allowed us to see the unseen of what we were unable to see from our own perspective. Photographs taken from hot air balloons gave people their first aerial images of towns and cities. Civil War photographs showed death and destruction on a scale that few had ever seen. I guess on that scale, that would be accurate. But something to remember is that trains had already existed. And trains were notoriously dangerous if an accident happened. Um, and because back then, a train accident was an event that people would go out and see. And so people would go out to these train wrecks back then and would um, actually like watch as dead bodies were pulled out and stuff. It was a whole thing to watch. Just like how people, way back in like the medieval times would would gather to watch a beheading. It was an event. So like I guess if you're arguing scale, Civil War, you're not gonna beat that kind of scale in such a small area at that time. Um, Relatively small area. So yeah, I guess scale you could argue, but they had seen a lot of death. To say that they hadn't seen anything like it is untrue. Anyway, that's a whole other tangent. Uh there are plenty of photographs that were produced during this time that made it look like spirits were revealed through the scientific process of capturing images on paper. Um, he produced portraits that had ghastly images in the background or near the person being photographed. Was one of his clients. She visited him after her husband's murder. His photograph of her had an image of Abraham Lincoln behind her with his hands on her shoulders. I wish it had given the term because there is a term for it. Um, and it does involve exposure. And I cannot remember the term or the exact process, but it is very manipulative. Uh, I'd argue all of the pictures were manipulated, not just some. But anyway, prior to the Civil War, when a loved one died, the family handled the process at home. The dying would be surrounded by family and friends. Wakes and funerals were held in homes, allowing people to grieve together. It is estimated that 750,000 men died in the Civil War. And again, that was in a relatively small area, comparatively small. Um, uh, were unable to be with their loved ones when they passed. They never saw the body and had no closure. Death on this scale hadn't happened before. Um, this great loss and immense sorrow of so many families contributed to the rise and appeal of spiritualism, and gave someone a chance to speak to their loved one, which gave them comfort. Ah, the Fox sisters. Uh, Maggie, Maggie and Kate Fox lived in New York. When they were 14 and 11, they had relayed some strange experiences to their parents. The girls demonstrated this for their parents and neighbors. They would ask questions, and noises would come in response. Their fame and demonstrations catapulted spiritualism into a phenomenon. Maggie and Kate were joined by their older sister Leah, and they spent their lives working as mediums. Had a falling out, which led to Maggie coming forward to claim that it was all a hoax, and revealed that the first spirit communications in their New York bedroom was a prank, and they used an apple and a string to produce the spirit noises. A year later, Maggie recanted all this. Okay. Let's see. So she was the middle sister. Anyway, Emma was born in England, demonstrated talent as a singer and musician and actress. I wonder how acting helped her in this. Her first trip to America was a role in Broadway, where she met spiritualist Horace Day. She became a spiritualist and began work as a medium and trance lecturer. With a deceased sailor who had died on his ship, had sunk a few weeks earlier, and knew details about the ship and the sinking that only someone with first-hand knowledge would know. Did they find the ship? Did they actually know what happened to the ship after researching it? Or are they just going, oh, yeah, that makes sense? Because I could say, a ship could sink, and I could say, oh, they got, you know, they ran across a rock that was just in the middle of an ocean that was unseen to them and caused their ship to sink, and they were too far out to be able to swim to land, and they died in the water. Oh, wow. How could he know about the rock? Only someone that was there would know about the rock. Mm. Anyway. Emma was a born entertainer. Remember how I made that comment earlier? Uh, and used these skills during her demonstrations. Yep. What do you think about these amazing women? Okay. So, like, in those days, being a successful woman, very difficult. So I'm not gonna poo poo, them saying amazing women, because the fact that these women made a name for themselves without um too terribly much outrage from men, being like they need to be in the home, um, is impressive. But based on some of the other things that were written here, like the ghostly images, where they say uh, critics and proof that some of the pictures were manipulated. Again, I'd argue that there is a process that it is done. And I would argue that all of the pictures were manipulated. So, like, there does seem to be a little bit of they kind of believe the spiritualism aspect of it. Um, I mean, they do criticize that, there's mediums exposed for fraud and so forth. Um, but it's definitely like written, despite having like the mention of several frauds and everything. It does, it's written in a way that's like still like leaning that direction. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Okay. What information did I actually get out of this? Did I really get anything? Oh yeah, I guess I did. Kind of. I have to. I definitely got something out of that, but I don't know that. I don't know how much of it's useful. Let's go ahead and read this last article and call it a stream because I do have to start getting ready for work here soon. Um, and I'll kind of stew on that article a little bit. All right. Modern spiritualists communicate with spirits of people who have physically died. Such communication is thought to be beneficial to the dead and to the living. Spirits are said to communicate through people with special skills called mediums. In the 19th century, communication was said to have occurred at an event called a seance, but in the 21st century, most communication is said to take place either in public demonstration or mediumship at a spiritualist church, or in a private setting with a medium. The validity of spiritualism has always been controversial. Uh, I'd argue that all of them are fraudulent people because, again, going into this, obviously, it's very clear I do have a bias, but like you can look at every single psychic and identify the trick that they are using. Um, like for instance, a lot of them will ask you if they have a J or a G. Like they'll initially say J because 20% of all people uh, with English names, I should add, 20% of all English people with have names that start with a J. And so they'll add the G in there as like a way to hedge their bets. And this is for cold reading. Cold reading is all about making vague but educated guesses. So, they'll add the G in there. They could be like, well, it could sound like a J, like a G that sounds like a J. And then so they'll then go, so is there anyone with a J or a G in your name? And you'll forget that the G is supposed to be a J sound. So they could say that and you're thinking, oh yeah, my my cousin Greg, because you know they'll twist it in a way that you forget that it's supposed to be a J sounding G and go, oh yeah, Greg, and then they're like, yeah, I'm talking to Greg right now, and you'll forget all about that. Like they're very good at making you forget about the mistakes they do have, by shotgun approaching these educated guesses. They'll also talk about when they're asking you about this person. If it's a male, they'll ask if it's um, they'll ask if it's a father figure. They won't say father because there are significant portion of people that don't have fathers. They'll ask if it's a father figure. And then, so that way it could be an uncle, it could be a friend's dad, it could be a grandfather, it could be a family friend, it could, like, saying father figure makes it so broad. And then you're like, oh my God, yeah, it was my friend Samantha's father, Greg, you know. And then they'll ask, they died from cancer or heart failure. Cancer and heart failure are the two biggest causes of death by a mile. Nothing comes close to cancer and heart disease for causes of death. Nothing. Those are the two biggest causes of death worldwide by a mile. By saying, oh, did they die of cancer or did they die of heart failure? I'm brought up, on Tyler Henry when we were looking at him early in the stream. He predicted Alan Thicke's death. Alan Thicke died from a heart issue. Remember that. That is one of the biggest. That is the biggest cause of death outside of cancer. It's not really that impressive when you think about it, right? 68-year-old, I believe Alan Thicke was 68 when he died. 68-year-old dying of heart failure. Really? But yeah, if you actually, there's several other tricks that they use, but if you actually pay attention to these tricks, you'll see that every single one of them use it. Every single one. And that's for cold readings. With hot readings, oh boy, especially with the internet now, uh, they have time to look you up. They will look you up. You know all those ads about data brokers? They're people that will buy your information from a data broker. That way they can tell you stuff that no one else should know. But they know because they bought it from someone that sells your information. And stuff like that. It's very deceptive what they do. And so I that's why I push back on the, some have fraudulently. No, they're all frauds. If you actually are paying attention, they all do the same tactics. They're all frauds. Anyway, spiritualism is different from the world's major and minor religions. Because it's recent, it doesn't have a global presence, and it doesn't have a body of theology. However, it is a new religious movement with rituals, doctrinal components, and a belief in a transcendent realm. It has the experimental dimension and elements that other religions also have. Modern spiritualism sees itself as entirely rational, with no element of supernatural. For spiritualists, this is what distinguishes their beliefs from the concept of life after death, found in many other faiths. The movement began in the USA in the middle of the 19th century. It is said to be the 8th largest religion in Britain and has a network of groups across the country. Okay. Souls survive bodily death in a spiritual world. Every human soul survives death of the body. Souls can communicate with the material world. Spirit beings are little changed from their earlier selves. Spirit beings are interested in people in the material world. All right. Spiritualists sometimes refer to spiritualism as a religion, a philosophy, and a science. Many spiritualists teach that spiritualism isn't based on natural scientific laws and does not involve it's based on natural scientific laws and does not involve the supernatural. Well, there's this demonstrated evidence that there is a life after death. What demonstrated evidence? Show me the evidence. Some writers think that this scientific emphasis dates from the early days. Discovery of invisible forces such as electricity and magnetism. We know what causes electricity and magnetism, and it has nothing to do with the spirit realm. Okay, so I'm gonna stew on what I'm gonna use from that article in this article here. Because again, that will lead into us talking about Tyler Henry and then the Psychic Twins, which I don't even know what the fuck their names are. But they're on YouTube. And they claim to have predicted 9/11 and they did not. Okay. So I'm gonna stew on all that for a while. And start getting ready for work. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.